In the summer of 1787, delegates gathered in Philadelphia to do something unprecedented: design a government from scratch. James Madison took notes day after day, more than 600 pages. They are the closest thing we have to being in the room. What we see in those pages is not harmony, but debate. Fierce argument over power, who would have it, how much, and how it would be limited. I want to look at these debates not just as history, but as lessons. The men in that room had lived through monarchy and war. They feared tyranny, and they struggled to design a government strong enough to endure, but not so strong that it could destroy liberty. Representation. Power belongs to the people. From the start, the central question was, how should the people be represented? Large states wanted representation by population, more people, more votes. Small states wanted equality, one state, one vote. James Madison warned. Madison's notes, June 30th, 1787.
The great danger to our general government is that the southern and northern interests of the continent, being opposed to each other, will fail to unite unless a just proportion of representation be established.
And yet, William Patterson asked. Madison's notes, June 9th, 1787.
Can we forget for whom we are forming a government? Is it for men or for the imaginary beings called states?
The clash nearly broke the convention. The compromise was two houses of Congress, the House of Representatives, tied to population, and the Senate, where each state had equal voice. Executive power, fear of a new king. The next great question, what about the executive? Alexander Hamilton shocked the room. He declared. Madison's notes, June 18th, 1787.
The British government was the best in the world. That best government he wished to be imitated as far as possible. The executive should be independent for life.
That sounded too much like monarchy. Others feared corruption more than weakness. George Mason warned. Madison's notes, July 17th, 1787.
If we do not provide against corruption, our government will soon be at an end.
In the end, they chose 4 years, with re-election possible but subject to impeachment. It was an experiment in power with guardrails designed to prevent another king. Slavery, liberty compromised. But the debates also show the limits of their vision. When the question of slavery arose, should enslaved people count toward representation? Gouverneur Morris thundered. Madison's notes, August 8th, 1787.
Upon what principle shall slaves be computed in the representation? Are they men? Then make them citizens, and let them vote. Are they property? Why then is not other property included? The inhabitant of Georgia or South Carolina who goes to the coast of Africa in defiance of the most sacred laws of humanity, tears away his fellow creatures, and damns them to the most cruel bondage, shall have more votes than the citizen of Pennsylvania or New Jersey, who views with a laudable horror so nefarious a practice.
But the Southern delegates would not yield. John Rutledge coldly stated. Madison's notes, June 28, 1787.
Religion and humanity have nothing to do with this question. Interest alone is the governing principle with nations.
The result was the 3/5 compromise and protection of the slave trade for 20 years. Liberty was sacrificed to unity. Federal versus state power, striking balance. Another great debate. How much power should the new government have over the states? The Virginia Plan declared. Madison's notes, May 29, 1787.
Resolved that a national government ought to be established, consisting of a supreme legislative, judiciary, and executive.
But Luther Martin fired back. Madison's notes, June 27, 1787.
The use of the word national is as alarming as the word consolidation. The states would be annihilated.
The result was a constitution of limited but supreme powers, a balance between national authority and state sovereignty. Still, many Americans were deeply suspicious. They feared that giving more power to a federal government would open the door to monarchy by another name. To answer these fears, Madison, Hamilton, and John Jay began publishing the Federalist Papers. They explained how the Constitution would restrain government power by dividing it between the federal and state levels and among the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. In Federalist Number 51, Madison argued that liberty was safest not because men were virtuous, but because power would be checked at every turn. Ambition must be made to counteract ambition. The papers became a defense of the new Constitution, a promise that federal power would be strong enough to govern, but never strong enough to dominate. Checks and balances, dividing power to save liberty. Perhaps the most enduring theme of the convention was division of power. The delegates feared any one branch becoming too powerful because they had lived under it. Britain's King George III had dissolved legislatures, vetoed laws, and ruled by decree. Parliament had taxed and regulated the colonies without consent. And under the failed Articles of Confederation, the opposite had been true. Too much power left to the states, with no effective national check. They wanted a balance, not a weak government, not a king, but something in between, Elbridge Gerry warned. Madison's notes, June 2nd, 1787.
The evils we experience flow from the excess of democracy. The people do not lack virtue, but are the dupes of pretended patriots.
He feared a purely popular government would be manipulated by demagogues. Others feared the opposite, that elites or a strong executive would crush liberty. The answer was to pit ambition against ambition. A legislature with two houses, one close to the people, the other more deliberate. An executive strong enough to act, but restrained by impeachment and elections. A judiciary independent of both, meant to resist temporary passions. James Madison noted. Madison's notes, July 17, 1787.
The great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself.
This was the heart of checks and balances, not trust in any one branch, but distrust of them all, George Mason echoed. Madison's notes, July 11th, 1787.
If strong and extensive powers are vested in the executive without any limitations, it will form a monarchy and soon swallow up all the rest.
The delegates built a system of separated powers, forced to share authority. They believed liberty could be preserved not by concentrating power, but by dividing it. The Bill of Rights debate. At the end, George Mason refused to sign. He declared. Madison's notes, September 15th, 1787.
There is no Declaration of Rights, and the laws of the general government being paramount to the laws and constitutions of the several states, the declarations of rights in the separate states are no security. A Bill of Rights is what the people are entitled to against every government on earth, and what no just government should refuse or rest on inference.
The convention ended without one, but the push for ratification forced the promise of amendments, and the first 10 soon followed. In them, we see the clearest shield against authoritarianism. Lessons for today. Madison's notes remind us that the Constitution was not handed down from above. It was argued, fought over, compromised, and corrected. It is not a perfect document. It carried forward contradictions that would scar the nation. But its century struggle was clear: how to prevent concentrated power. That struggle still matters. History shows us what happens when checks and balances are cast aside. Authoritarian rulers rise, rights are trampled, and nations descend into war, oppression, and ruin. The men in Philadelphia were trying, in their imperfect way, to guard against that fate. Their debates are not just history. They are warnings and reminders for every generation.
Thanks for watching Hot LZ. If you value open discussion and real American voices, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. and join the conversation at hotlz.com.